A very good morning to all of you. Today we'll be starting with the concept of irregular proceedings. We have already discussed this concept of irregular proceedings during our classes when we have discussed various aspects under the code. When does a proceeding becomes irregular and whether the proceedings have become irregular to that extent where that irregularity can be cured. But before proceeding with this concept of irregular proceedings or the chapter under the code of irregular proceedings, now let us first try to understand a question which must have come to your mind, that what is a procedure illegality and what is a procedure irregularity. Now, understanding the concept of procedure illegality and irregularity, now what we can say? We can say that an illegal act or procedure is wholly unwarranted by law, and the effect of such act is that they are void ab initio and cannot be made enforceable in any court of law. On the contrary, a procedure irregularity may not be illegal in the sense that no wrong is committed and an act of irregularity may not be necessarily be void. It becomes usually voidable at the option of the court or as the statute prescribes. Further, procedure illegality relates to the violation of law caused by an act without reference to the legal power of the person. On the contrary, a procedure irregularity relates to the legal competence and the extent of power that can be exercised to do an act. If the power is exercised is less or more, it is irregular. A procedure illegality applies to an act forbidden or prohibited by law. On the other hand, an irregularity applies to an act which, even though not prohibited by law, but it is also not permitted by any statutory provisions. Now, chapter 35 of the code provides for irregular proceedings, and this chapter contains 7 sections. Now, section 4, and it is from section 460 to section 466 of the code, wherein section 460 provides with respect to such irregularities which do not vitiate the proceedings, and section 461 provides for such irregularities which would vitiate the proceedings, and section 462 provides for proceedings when they are being instituted in wrong place. Section 463 provides for non-compliance with provisions of section 164 or section 281. 464 provides effect of omission to frame or absence of or error in charge. 465 finding or sentence when reversible by reason of error, omission or irregularity. And finally, section 466 which provides defect or error not to make attachment unlawful. Section 460 of the code provides irregularities which do not vitiate proceedings. Now it reads as, if any magistrate not empowered by law to any of the following acts which are mentioned from A to I, and he erroneously in good faith does that thing, his proceedings shall not be set aside merely on the ground that he is not empowered to do so. Now, for instance, if the magistrate issue a search warrant under section 94 or take cognizance of an offence under clause A or clause B of subsection 1 of section 190. Section 460 cures such irregularity, though the magistrate was not empowered by law to do the acts, but in good faith, even if he has acted, then these irregularities shall not vitiate the proceedings. Now, in the case of A. Devendram versus State of Tamil Nadu, an accused was granted pardon by the Chief Judicial Magistrate, and the case was already being committed to the Court of Session and was pending trial before the learned Session Judge. Now, the question which came before the court is to decide is whether the Chief Judicial Magistrate could have at all granted pardon to the accused even after the committal of the proceedings to the Court of Session. Now, it was held in this case that after commitment of the proceeding, the Chief Judicial Magistrate does not have jurisdiction to grant pardon under section 306 of the code. And in such case, if such a Chief Judicial Magistrate tenders pardon, then that would not be a curable irregularity within the ambit of clause G of section 460 of the code. Now, section 460 clause G of the code can have no reference to an act of a magistrate who is empowered under section 306, but though he is empowered, but he does not possess the jurisdiction after an order of commitment is passed. As once the commitment is being made, the committing magistrate will no longer retain jurisdiction over the proceedings. Section 461 enumerates the irregularities which, if committed by a magistrate, shall vitiate the proceedings under the code, and the proceeding shall be void. Now, this section is not exhaustive, as it does not furnish a complete list of irregularities which vitiate a proceeding. For example, If there is a violation of a proviso to section 212 of this code, though not included in this section, renders the proceeding illegal if its non-compliance causes any prejudice to the accused. Section refers to an act of the magistrate only and not of a session judge, though an act done by the session judge not being empowered by law to do is also void. Proceedings in wrong place. Section 462 of the code provides that no finding, sentence or order of any criminal court shall be set aside merely on the ground that an inquiry, trial or other proceedings in the course of which it was arrived or passed took place in a wrong session, division, district, subdivision or other local area, unless it appears that such error has in fact occasioned a failure of justice. So the policy of the court is to uphold in most cases the orders passed by the criminal code, which was lacking in local jurisdiction or which had committed irregularities, unless the failure of justice has been occasioned through such want of jurisdiction or such illegalities or irregularities. Now, in the case of Mangaldas Raghavji Rupra vs. State of Maharashtra, the appellant urged that the trial court had no jurisdiction to try the appellant, as the appellant had not committed any offence within his jurisdiction. The Supreme Court held that the mere fact that the proceedings were taken in a wrong place would not vitiate the trial unless it appears that this has occasioned a failure of justice. In the case of Rajkumari versus Dev Rahavij, the Supreme Court held that there are two types of jurisdiction of a criminal court. First, the jurisdiction with respect to the power of the court to try particular kinds of offences, and second, its territorial jurisdiction. With respect to the jurisdiction of the court to try particular kinds of offences, it goes to the root of the matter and any transgression of it makes the entire trial void. On the other hand, when it talks with respect to the territorial jurisdiction, the latter is not a preemptory character and is curable under section 462 of the code. Section 463, non-compliance with the provisions of section 164 or section 281. Section 463 of the code enables the court to take evidence in regard to any non-compliance and to act on such evidence if the court is satisfied that such non-compliance has injured the accused in his defense on the merits. Now, in recording a confession by the magistrate, the function of the magistrate in recording the confession under section 164 of the code is a very solemn act, which he is obliged to perform by taking due care to ensure that all the requirements of section 164 are fully satisfied. The magistrate recording such a statement should not adopt a casual approach. Besides, ensuring that the confessional statement being made before him is voluntary and without pressure, the magistrate must also record the confession in the manner laid down by the section. Omission to comply with the mandatory provisions, one of such as being incorporated in subsection 4 of section 164, is likely to render the confessional statement inadmissible. The word shall be signed by the person making the confession are mandatory in nature, and the magistrate recording the confession has no option. But if such non-compliance has not injured the accused in his defense on the merits, and he duly made the statement recorded, then the courts of appeal, reference and division may admit such statement. Now, in the case of Dhananjay Reddy vs. State of Karnataka, it was held that mere failure to get the signature of the person making the confession may not be very material if the making of such statement is not disputed by the accused. But in cases where the making of the statement itself is in controversy, the omission to get the signature is fatal. Section 464 of the code provides effect of omission to frame or absence of or error in charge. Section 464 deals with the effect of omission to frame or absence or of error in the framing of charge and provides that no finding, sentence or order by a court of competent jurisdiction shall be deemed invalid merely on the ground that no charge was framed or on the ground of any error, omission or irregularity in the charge, including any misjoinder of charges, unless in the opinion of the Court of Appeal, confirmation or revision a failure of justice has in fact occasioned thereby. What is important when there is an omission to frame a charge, or there is an absence of charge, or there is an error in framing of charge, that it has not led to the failure of justice. And we have seen the same also when we are discussing the chapter of charge, that what is important with respect to the framing of charge is that the framing of charge, if there is an addition of a new charge, alteration of a new charge, then it should not cause prejudice to the accused. And the Court of Appeal in revision or confirmation must record a finding to the effect that a failure of justice has in fact been occasioned on account. of non-framing of charge. Now, if the error or omission committed under section 164 is so obvious that it goes to the foundation of natural justice and the provisions of the code have been substantially violated, then the same would be struck down illegal. The defect in framing of the charge might be so serious that it cannot be covered under section 464, which provide that an order of sentence or conviction shall not be deemed to be invalid on the ground that no charge was framed or that there was some irregularity or omission or misjoinder of charge, unless the court comes to the conclusion that there was also, as a consequence, a failure of justice. In Darbara Singh vs. State of Punjab, a criminal appeal has been preferred against the judgment and order passed by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, which affirmed the judgment and order passed by the additional session judge, wherein the appellant was convicted under section 302 of IPC, and also his co-accused was also being similarly convicted and sentenced under section 302. In the appeal, the appellant submitted that he was never charged under section 302 read with section 34 of IPC. In this case, the counsel on behalf of the appellant was unable to show that even if such charge has not been framed, then what prejudice it has caused to the appellant. In this case, the court also elaborately and upon consideration of a large number of earlier judgments dealt with the defect in framing the charge. The court in Sanichar Sahni vs. State of Bihar held that unless the convict is able to establish that defect in framing the charges has caused real prejudice to him, and that he was not informed as to what was the real case against him, and then he could not defend himself properly, no interference is required in on mere technicalities. Conviction order in fact is to be tested on the touchstone of prejudice theory. In Darbara Singh case, the court also referred to Rafiq Ahmad vs. State of UP, wherein the court held that the failure of justice is an extreme pliable or facile expression which can be made to fit in any situation in any case. The court must endeavour to find the truth, and there would be a failure of justice not only by unjust conviction but also by acquittal of the guilty as a result of unjust failure to produce requisite evidence. The court further held that prejudice is incapable of being interpreted in its generic sense and applied to criminal jurisprudence. The plea of prejudice has to be in relation to investigation or trial and not with respect to matters falling outside their scope. Once the accused is able to show that there has been a serious prejudice caused to him with respect to either of these aspects and that the same has defeated the rights available to him under the jurisprudence, then the accused can seek benefit under the orders of the court. Finding of sentence when reversible by reason of error, omission or irregularity. Section 465 applies when some irregularity takes place at a regular trial. Errors, omissions or irregularities may take place in any trial or proceeding. So no special notice of them is to be taken so long as they do not in fact occasion a failure of justice. Now under section 465 they are mainly classified into two categories. Firstly, when any error, omission or irregularity in the complaint, summons, warrant, proclamation, order, judgment or other proceedings before or during the trial or in any inquiry or other proceedings under this code. And secondly, any error or irregularity in any sanction for the prosecution. Now these above mentioned irregularities do not enable a court of appeal, confirmation or revision to reverse or alter any finding, sentence or order passed by a court of competent jurisdiction unless in the opinion of the court a failure of justice in fact has been occasioned thereby. Now, in respect of subsection 2 of section 465, in determining whether want of valid sanction had in fact occasioned failure of justice, enjoins on the court a duty to consider whether the accused had raised any objection at the early stage. It is hardly sufficient to conclude that there was a failure of justice. It has to be determined on the facts of each case. But an accused who did not raise it at the trial stage cannot possibly sustain such a plea in the appellate court. Section 466 of the code provides for defect or error not to make attachment unlawful. Section 466 provides that no attachment made under the code shall be deemed unlawful, nor shall any person making the same be deemed a trespasser on account of any defect or want or from in the summon, conviction, writ or attachment or other proceedings relating thereto. Thank you. Have a nice day. And for your questions and observations, you can write to me at my email ID. That is gautamgupta@mpednlu.ac.in.